So I guess you everyone see me in this presentation. Cool. So let me properly introduce myself. I'm Faye, and I live in Athens, Greece. And usually I'm in a very happy mood, as you can see in this picture. And if you run by me, you would probably catch me thinking about Agile, obviously, software, project management, technology things, and my favorite, coaching, of course. So I hope you're intrigued by our today's topic. So moving forwards, we are going to talk about powerful questions, active listening, and some other insights and things you can actually use right away, even starting from tomorrow. So there are many techniques and practices that fall under the coaching umbrella, and I'm sure you have heard of most of them already. But what is important though is to share among us, the community of like-hearted agilists and coaches, how some of those practices, even the old and good stuff that we know about, how we can rethink them and make the most out of them, like all the goody active listening. But first things first, let's set the ground and remind ourselves the scope under Agile coaching lives and acts. So what Agile coaching is really about? You see, the term Agile coaching sounds prestigious, kind of, but it is mostly about supporting people, supporting teams and organizations through their own journey to self-awareness and fulfillment. It is the act of thought-provoking, so to help them see and explore what they already know, to find the answers to their challenges by using what they already got. Coaching does not serve the answers. Instead, helps the coachees see new perspectives and possibilities and understand what's behind things for them. Coaching is about fundamental change, not just a tool, and it stands on a fundamental principle that the coachees are the experts in their lives. Simply, they know better. And all these, of course, under the umbrella of the Agile principles and values. So I'm just checking if there are any messages, any questions already, but feel free to jump in if you want to ask something and can't wait until the end. So moving forward, someone would ask, okay, why bother? Why we should invest in coaching? Is there any value? Does it matter after all? Well, as you already know, Agile is lightweight and simply to understand most of the times. However, we don't fool ourselves. It might seem easy to understand, but it's certainly far from easy to implement and, more importantly, to endure over time. It is okay to use the tools, apply the obvious techniques, and get started, but it is also easy to reach at the glass ceiling if you stay just in Jira and stand-ups. We need to go further to coach our teams in a more deep level of awareness and go from doing Agile to being Agile. It's like the holy grail of Agilists, right? After all, the world has changed. We cannot expect to manage high-tech applications, modern stuff, and third-generation high-skilled employees and special engineers, if you are in the software industry, using outdated management techniques. People demand more. They need to know that they matter. The old command and control leadership style is fading away. It was about time, to be honest, and servant leadership is taking more and more place in the marketplace. Servant leadership and agile coaching seem to go great together. In fact, they complement one another. Seems like the servant leadership found its match in agile and especially in coaching. So agile coaching applies at different levels. We can coach at an individual level, at the team's level, of course, and certainly at the whole organizational level. It helps the team develop and get healthier together as they move on, while at the same time helps each person, each individual to take the next step on their agile journey so that they can be more successful agilists and contribute in a way that feeds team improvement and their own growth. But why stop there? We can practice agile coaching also at the whole organization level in a more holistic way, and especially by not excluding leadership and executives, which is very often, more often than I would like to admit. This way, we can help the organization achieve astonishing results, the kind that will matter to the business and the team members in a fundamental way, shaping their culture. Well, you know, culture, it's everything and everyone for breakfast. So creating the culture that will enable employees to not just do their work, but do what they love, what they're best at, and also get awesome results. Promoting innovation and also the ability to respond to a constant changing and challenging business environment by investing in the agility to pivot and make courageous but also value-based decisions. Hopefully by now I got your attention and your appetite, and that was exactly my intention. Of course, there are different coaching practices more suitable for each level of coaching, for individual, for team, and organizational level. But at the same time, there are also some great stuff for either case, like the fundamentals that work for any level of coaching. And that's what we're going to check out today. Some of the most powerful coaching practices that you can put in action, whether you are experienced or a new entry, or whether you are coaching individuals or teams, or even if you're just curious. So with no further delay, I present you the powerful questions. Ta-da! So someone might think, oh, come on, Faye. What makes a question powerful? This sounds like mumbo jumbo. Well, it might, but powerful mumbo jumbo. You see, asking questions is like a synonym to coaching, but not all questions serve coaching the same way. We need to use and pick carefully the powerful ones. So powerful questions are transformative in a way that they trigger the coach's intelligence, the creative thinking, and also self-reflection. Powerful questions help them understand what's behind things for them, to get behind the surface, behind the blurry curtains, to get right to what what matters to them. So how do those super powerful questions look like and where to find them? So we have open-end questions where they are short with few accurate words versus lengthy and chatty and misleading questions. It's one question at a time, no stacking. We don't want to bombard the coachee with question over question. Instead, we are using clear and direct questions in a slow, thought-welcoming pace. The most important characteristic of open-end questions, and here's where I need your full attention, guys, is that they do not, under any circumstances, imply a solution or a direction. They are neutral. So even if you know, or you think you know the answer, remember that as a coach, or as a manager, or as a leader under a coaching stance, it's not your call. It's not your problem to fix. We need to ask the questions for the sake of the coachee's own thinking, to create new awareness, new ways of thinking, new information to make decisions. So open-end questions serve just that, to create the space to generate learning instead of manipulation and imposing solutions, which is very often, especially in the workplace, but also in school and in education. So an easy way to distinguish open from closed questions is that they usually start with words like who, what, when, and where. And more importantly, open-end questions, powerful questions, start with why and how. For example, instead of did you try this, or have you talked to that person, you can try this. What about what about doing that? Well, this is an exact antiparten. There is a clear suggestion there, right? We want to avoid those. To get a better idea of how an open-end question works, let's compare them to closed-end questions, which is the opposite. For example, we have what would happen if you try this solution? Can you see the suggestion here? Instead, we can use what could you try with this problem? Can you see the space we are creating here for them to do their own thinking? I repeat, what could you try with this problem instead of have you tried this? It's a clear distinction between a suggestion and a fitting, provoking question. Another example to make it more clear, we have you done this? Have you tried this? Instead of with how are you going to do this? Do you notice how the word how changes the whole scope and the space that we are creating with this question? How are you going to do this? We challenge the coach's own thinking to find the solution or find the next experiment. So just keep in mind some key characteristics of powerful questions. We use direct, short, and clear wording. As a rule of thumb, 3 to 7 words, it's okay. You don't have to, to word count. Just keep that at the back of your head, because you see, too many words decreases the scope of the question and introduces waste into the question and into the discussion we have with the coachee. We want to be direct, expressing genuine interest that serves their learning. There is a challenge when being direct. The challenge is to avoid even the slightest bit of criticism. And another very handy tip is to use their language. Use their language, their words, their references, building intimacy and trust. Use language that they can understand, making a connection with you and their background. But remember, the greatest, most powerful question is why? Single word, no criticism, and powerful. So ask the question to provoke their thinking and then just step back. Allow them to think, allow them to grow. Sometimes they just need the space to realize and process what they already know. So let's go to the main course, some more examples and some tips. You can write down whatever fits more appropriate and more handy for you. So in case we want to guide our teams or our coaches as individuals to discover impediments, we could ask, what do you need to solve this problem? What is standing in your way? So when we need to dive into the root cause of a situation and create awareness for them, we can ask, why is this a good or a bad thing? Why is this important? Do you notice how the word why provokes awareness? But what can we do to focus on learning and discovery? Well, in that case, we can simply ask, what do you learn from this? What are you discovering? What's new here? What new information is here for you? How does it feel to say that out loud? What is specifically you want to do more or less of? So I bet you want some more examples, right? Okay, let's see a few more. Well, actually, this part of the examples is my favorite one. I admit, sometimes I have a cheat sheet with my best questions. So I advise you to take some notes if you like, or just reach out later for more examples. So a great coaching tactic is to focus on the future. Just help your teams broaden their thinking and not just limit on that very specific thing that is happening at the moment. Because you see, we tend to stack on a particular detail and go over and over the same loop. We need to break this loop and see the bigger picture. So here's how powerful questions can be of aim to that cause. So we can ask, what would you prefer happen? How would you prefer acting instead? What outcome would you like? How success would look like? Have you noticed here that we invoke their imagination? That is exactly the point. To think out of the box, to invoke their imagination. So we had some awesome examples of great questions for thinking and awareness. However, we need at some point to help the coaches and the teams to take responsibility and actions, not just stay at wishful thinking. So to focus on actions, we can ask, what are you going to do next? How can you use this information? What are you willing to do about this? What could go wrong? What might get in your way? Oof, I think I had enough of questions so far. Just changing the scope a bit and getting in a more philosophical mood. You know, philosophy is a significant part of Greek culture. Being Greek myself, we are very familiar with an iconic figure of Greek philosophy, Socrates, and his notorious method. The Socratic method is named after the Greek philosopher Socrates, who taught students by asking question after question. Sounds a bit annoying, right? Well, he was famous for that, particularly for that, for being annoying. So he drew out answers from his pupils to challenge their thinking. And here are 6 types of questions Socrates posed. For clarifying questions, what exactly does this mean? For probing assumptions, what else could we assume? For probing rationale, reasons and evidence, why is that happening? For questioning viewpoints and perspectives, who benefits from this? For probing implications and consequences, what are the consequences of that assumption? But Socrates went even further by questioning the question. Why do you think I asked this question? And that's the annoying part, I think. So I suggest you to do your own investigation on the Socratic method and how this could be of use in coaching and, of course, in life. After exploring this questions part, it comes naturally at this point to come to a deeper understanding of why we are paying so much attention to this particular practice. Because we aim to liberate our coaches by transforming limiting assumptions into liberating questions. For example, what are you assuming here that is making you feel that way? What can you assume instead? You see the liberating transformation? So enough with the questions. But what else? Oh, that is another powerful question, by the way. It seems I can't help it. Next, we have something that goes great with asking powerful questions, is to know how to listen. Active listening it is. So sometimes we think that the opposite of talking is listening. Well, in fact, the opposite of talking is waiting. But waiting still implies presence. And that is all about active listening. It's all about presence. Mark my word. But before saying anything more, let's first understand a bit the different levels of listening, because there are levels of listening that equal levels of presence. So we have the internal listening, where the words get interpreted through the listener's own perspective, own experiences, and bias. That level of listening does not work in coaching. I think does not work for anything, but still. Following, we have the second level, the focused listening, where it seems like a hardwired connection gets established between the coach and the coachee, the speaker and the listener. That's good, but not yet. And finally, we have the third level of listening. It's the global listening, where the coach uses everything in the environment when listening. It's where intuitions emerge and we reach a deeper understanding. Apart from the obvious, we also pay attention to the underlying text and the emotions present. Global listening increases people's ability to be creative and solve their own problems when they feel that they are heard at that level of listening. When they reach that connection, people tend to trust more their intuitions. So how to do it? Remember earlier that I mentioned something about presence? Well, that's it. We practice presence with eye contact. Something like listening with your eyes. It's weird, right? Well, we need to be focused on that moment, being comfortable with not knowing, just being present and available to the other person. Being available is a message to the other person that he's worthy, that this person worths our listening, our time, our presence. Active listening, along with powerful questions, work great together in creating and holding the space for the coaches to do their own growth. So presence also means that we notice things. We observe what happens with the body language, with the posture, the tone of voice, the inflection. Even where the coach is looking, we're saying specific words. Are there any patterns there? We listen also for patterns, for tweaks, for micro mannerisms. These are important stuff. But the most important of all is practicing empathy. Empathy is the capacity to understand and feel what the other person is experiencing from within their frame of reference. That is the capacity to place oneself in another's position. But we aim to practice empathy with intention. That is the difference. To practice empathy with awareness and intention. And that is what coaches do. So we are listening for feelings, we are hearing the background, what the coachee is saying without noticing it. This way, we can reflect on what we get from the coachee and use that to connect. Active listening, and especially at the global level, but which is what we are aiming for, isn't certainly a piece of cake. Even for very experienced listeners and coaches, active listening is never taken for granted. We can so easily slip and lose it. But why? What prevents us from listening actively? Well, we are human after all. We have lives and challenges as well. Our own thoughts and concerns can easily jump in and drive us away from being present during a session. But that's okay. We can always come back into shape. That's not the problem. However, there are some things we can have in mind to proactively be in the best listening shape. For example, a very common pitfall, especially for not experienced coaches, is that we tend to think of the next step, to think our next actions, what to ask next, right? Well, remember, that is not the purpose. The right question will emerge as soon as we are present. At the bottom line, we need to maintain self-control and listen so to serve the coach's own learning, not our thoughts, right? But what else? Another thing that can be an impediment, let's say, for active listening is our own code of ethics, our beliefs, our bias, and cultural background. One manifestation of this, one sneaky manifestation of this, sounds like an inner voice of criticism. You know what I'm referring to, right? It is very, very common. But last but not least, we, the coaches, we are very prone to the hero syndrome. Sounds familiar? Well, I admit I have been guilty for some hero syndromes so far, because it is so alluring to just jump in and save the day, especially when we care for the other person and when we think that we have the answer. But we need to remember that we might be the experts in learning and listening, but they are the experts in their lives. They need to come up with their own actions and their own adventures. Oh, I see. I'm pretty sure there are already some of you thinking, come on, Faye, how we're going to achieve all this? Well, no one said it would be easy. We need to practice self-reflection that results in self-awareness and finally in self-control. Try this. When in urge to speak, ask if this serves you or them. Does this come from a place about them? Do they really need my opinion here? Or me speaking up serves my needs? Then count to 10 and do it anyway. And then let there be silence. Remember, sometimes they need the space, just the space, to be heard and to realize and process. If I could pick just one skill for a coach, the top skill for coaching would be to get comfortable with silence. because silence is to stay with not knowing. Just for a few minutes, stay with not knowing, reflect and reflect. The coach holds that space for the coachee to reflect and grow. Weirdly, silence is about presence too. But why is this getting present so important? Because you see, with presence, we've coached people from a place of certainty. We speak with clarity, and our words simply have impact. Given presence, any intervention we make makes a difference, far more than another person throwing in another opinion and just being smart, the smartest person in the room. Often people and teams, very often, don't need that. So at this point, I have an exercise for you, a suggestion. You can do this on your own. You can do this with your teams, even with your family. It would be great also with your family. So I suggest to do this exercise. It goes something like this. First, ask people to think of a time, to reflect on a time, on an experience they have when they felt that they weren't listened to. Could be an experience at work, at school, whatever. Then split into pairs and share the stories by rotating. The listener must try and identify two things. What the person in the story did that demonstrated the non-listening behavior, and what what impact this had to the speaker. How did they feel? They felt angry, hurt. And then you have to debrief. To debrief, you can gather all the ideas together with the teams and develop some principles, some actions of good listening by reversing what happened in the stories. You can practice this with different people, so to get a broader understanding of the impact of not listening. And that, my friends, strengthen your empathy. I have tried this exercise with so many people, even though that some reactions tend to repeat. It's surprising how many different things come up. So by doing this exercise and repeating this exercise, it's a good opportunity to strengthen your empathy about the impact of not listening. Once you try it, please feel free to reach out and tell me and share with me what you found out and how this exercise went. So, okay, enough said about growing others. What about growing ourselves? Well, to grow our self-awareness, we can try to practice mindfulness, which is a very difficult thing to achieve. You can try meditation. You can, of course, we can get coaching for ourselves. I mean, it would be very strange to claim to be a coach without going through coaching. But even if you are not a coach, you can experience coaching by getting coaching. This would be the best, let's say, training, because it is founded on experience. Also, it is always a good idea to take some time to see and reflect what is really there, what's going on with you, what triggers you, where is your attention, what are your patterns. After all, what we practice, we become. But at the end of the day, a coach's job is exhausting. All those questions can be exhausting, and we sometimes need to give ourselves some slack. So I suggest you to practice compassion to yourselves as well. I'm pretty sure you're doing everything you can. You're doing a really good job. And remember that coaching is a journey for coaches, but also for coaches as well. It is a never-ending learning experience. So coming towards the end, I couldn't leave you without some tricks and treats. Another exercise you can put in action, like tomorrow, if you are in the mood. A very handy exercise you can use is the spider web, and it is a great exercise, a great tool for, because it combines also awareness with visualization, which boosts awareness. The idea is to narrow our focus on only 4 skills you want to improve at a certain time period. For example, let's say for the next 2 months. What are the 4 skills, or I don't know, the 4, try to find 4 goals for you that you want to improve at. Then you place each skill at its axis of this cross. First, you mark where you think you are today, and then you connect those dots. Then you mark when you want to be at the end of the 2 months, and then you connect those points. Try to narrow your thinking for at this specific time period, because I mean you want to put some realistic goals, right? Something that you can have in mind for the next 2 months, let's say. Then you color the area in between. You see the pink area, and that is the area you need to cover in the next 2 months to achieve your goals. This shape tends to imprint in your subconscious, and then this helps you get more realistic about your next actions and your goals. And this is the perfect time to brainstorm on the details, the actions, and the checklists you can come up to get you there. And of course, you can combine this exercise with all these powerful questions that you already have. For example, what can go wrong? Why is this goal important? And what you can try next? Who can help you on your way? Things like that. That's all for now, guys. I hope you got something out of this. If you want, if you missed something and you want to, to discuss more, apart from the Q&A session right away, you can always reach out. And of course, I can share the presentation and anything you need. So that's it. Let's see if we have any questions. Mindy, can you be of help here? I haven't keeping up with the chat so far.
Of course. We have Heleno asks what I have to do if I have noticed the talk and will not go forward without bringing examples and speaking something to my coaches.
Can you please repeat me this? Something went wrong with my Bluetooth.
Okay. What I have to do if I have noticed the talk and will not go forward without bringing examples and speaking to my coaches.
So just let me check if I got it right. You are in a session with a coachee that it feels like stuck, and the discussion, the talk will not go forward. Okay, And you are tempted to give some examples, right? Okay, I got it. So in that case, first, I suggest to resist the urge to fill in the gap. Sometimes the best feedback for coaches is to let silence speak for itself. Let the coachee understand that the talk and your session isn't going forward. Or you might think that the session, the discussion isn't going forward. Because this is the time that the coachee might is doing their own thinking and their own growth. So this is a very difficult situation, and this is what I mentioned earlier about the temptation to just fill in the gaps and rush the other person. So I suggest to get comfortable with that silence for a bit, not for the whole time, just for a bit. If you see that that there is nothing happening at that moment, then you can always ask the coachee, ask, what is happening right now? What are you thinking? What blocks you? Is anything blocking you? What blocks you? So you can ask questions about what is happening at that moment and then take it from there.
Okay, we have Karen that says, how to best determine if you are in a situation where the person really does need direction.
Well, first of all, in order, coaching requires permission. We cannot coach someone without asking permission. So usually a person comes and asks for coaching, or we offer our direction, but first we need to get permission. So it is not our call to determine if this person actually needs direction. This person needs to ask for it, to come to you for direction or for your thoughts and just discuss about it. But sometimes we can also offer the option, and then let the other person make the decision of taking or not.
We have a question from Brandon. How can a coach determine when the coachee is at their limit and training is needed?
So Brandon, can you please share with us what do you mean about coachee is at their limit? What do you mean by limit?
So, hi Faye, thank you for this. I appreciate it. I'm a coach in training, and sometimes you're asking open-ended questions, and you start going around the same questions and answers because you're noticing even in silence that the coachee is not progressing. So, how do you get beyond kind of their even asking questions? How do you get beyond kind of their limits without saying, I think we just need a refresher training?
Okay, so if you notice that there is a bit of knowledge that's missing here, that if you notice that, for example, a bit of information could be of help to the coachee, then my suggestion is to freely give the information, give the training, or even, refresh the training a bit. This can go. This also requires also permission. For example, it could go something like this. So Brandon, I noticed that we might need to refresh our training a bit about, just pick a topic, about retrospectives, for example. Do you think this could be of help? to refresh our training? Awesome. So this is the point. You can just provide the information like the same way you would do this with the team, casually. But then avoid the urge to just stay on this stance and come back as soon as you can to the coaching part and ask for and creating the space for the coachee to think how this bit of information can be of help to your session. Does this make sense?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, we have Vaselis. Aren't you suggesting the need for training in this way?
Yes, of course. Yes, you are suggesting the training. Actually, you are moving between the lines of two different roles of the coach. A coach can wear different hats. He can be a teacher, he can be a coach, he can be a mentor. The key point to this is to have the approval and the acceptance of the coachee that now you are suggesting to move to a training mode. The point here is to avoid to suggest and impose an underlying solution, to not manipulate the other person. You are offering the training, you are offering the information, but let the other person pick if this information could be of use. The most important thing, though, is to jump right back.